Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Welcome to episode 3 of our brand new series of the Global Business Insights podcast on hyper leadership. I'm joined once again by my partner in crime, Charlotte de Brabandt. Welcome, Charlotte.
Hi, Max. Thank you for having me once again.
You're very welcome. Great to have you. It's been a great couple of episodes so far on our new series. Been really good learning all about hyper leadership and the new concepts that any leader in business in the world now needs to embrace, because that is the way things are going. So you heard it here first. You need to listen to this and make sure you understand everything that we're putting across here, because it's super important. So this episode is about the collaboration between humans and AI in leadership. Very interesting concept. We're seeing more and more AI. We talked about AI in our last episode and how it's helping decision making. So question to start things off for you, Charlotte. Should leaders see AI as a tool, a partner, or a threat? And also, I think it might be worth defining what we mean by AI there as well.
Absolutely, Max. What a powerful question. So a tool, a partner, or a threat? To be honest, all three, depending on how consciously it's integrated. AI is such a powerful amplifier, and it can amplify intelligence and bias and efficiency or dysfunction. So hyper leadership, it treats AI as a cognitive collaborator, I think. So something that extends human capability, but it also requires human oversight. And the danger lies not in AI itself, but in unreflective use. So leaders who blindly trust AI outputs, they just don't know what kind of responsibility they get themselves into. Leaders who reject AI entirely become obsolete. So it's really important to have a balance, and the balance is intentional collaboration.
I think that's exactly as I see it, to be honest. It's that balance. You've got to embrace it, but you've got to understand the dangers. You've got to understand what it should be used for and where it shouldn't be used. And I think if you've got that in mind, then it's a great tool to use. I think where people are blindly using it, and I've seen all sorts of horrific cases of poor use of AI in the past and very much lately. I think this is the right approach, especially for leaders. So, yes, leaders are using AIs for some decision making, some of the outputs. We've also spoken there about not blindly trusting the outputs. What are the leadership responsibilities then that should never be delegated to AI, that should always be done by that leader, by that human, and that can't be replaced?
No, absolutely. It's a really important question. And I believe this whole ethical judgment is one of them, but also accountability and making these meaningful decisions. AI, it can recommend actions, but it cannot own consequences. And leaders remain responsible at the end of the day for the impact decisions have on people, society, and trust. So making these meaningful decisions is especially important. And AI can generate insights, but leaders must then translate those insights into purpose and direction and narrative. And that is, deep human, meaningful work.
Yeah, it's great because whilst we're saying that there's some tasks that AI should never be delegated to, that actually frees up the capacity by taking care of some of the other things that it can take care of for leaders, and it frees up their brains and their cognitive capacity to actually focus on making that deep human work correct and really putting the effort and the brain power into the areas that AI really can't replace. So I think that's actually a good thing, isn't it? And really makes sense. So let's flip that round then. Where does AI actually add the most value for leaders?
In reducing this cognitive load, AI excels at synthesizing vast data sets, identifying patterns and modeling scenarios. And this frees leaders to then focus on these high order thinking, creating strategy, having these meaningful relationships, cultural stewardship. So hyper leaders, they don't use AI to think less. They use it to think better.
I think that's absolutely the key to it, and certainly I'm a big advocate for that myself. It's not about getting rid of the thinking that you already have. It's about using it to refine your thinking and to actually formulate better thoughts. That's absolutely the use for it. And again, that should not be confused with outsourcing your thinking to AI. That's where the problems start, and they're two very different things. So I think that's something that all leaders got to get their heads around, not just for them, for their teams as well. Some of the issues I've seen lately in some of my coaching work is not the leaders themselves using AI, but their teams using AI, sending out narratives, emails, notes, all sorts, using things like ChatGPT without actually reading it through, and just sending it through. When you challenge them on it, they don't even know what they've written. So that's where I think it really does become a problem. And that's something for leaders to be aware of. Just on that concept then, what are some of the risks that concern you most with the adoption of AI, do you think, Charlotte?
Max, that's a really fair question. So having this over trust and deskilling, that's one of the main. And if leaders stop questioning outputs and then critically try to think what is being presented to them, another risk is the whole false objectivity, assuming AI is neutral when it reflects the biases embedded in its data and design. So hyper leadership, it really requires leaders to actively interrogate AI outputs and not passively consume them. I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely important. And I think another thing that is not necessarily understood with AI, people will just go onto these tools and expect it to give them the right answer and expect it to know everything already. The really good use of AI, the people that really are using it properly, have primed their AIs properly, given it the right operating system, given it all the right knowledge and understanding and tools. When they're building these agents, they've really taken the time to put everything into them so that the outputs are understood. What that AI is putting back to them is based on all the knowledge they fed in the first place. It's not just taking it from the whole world and giving you a biased view. So you've got to train these tools in the right way to make it work for you properly. Otherwise, you will get incorrect answers. Given that that's all coming, then it's already here. Businesses are embracing it. What should leaders do to prepare their organizations for true human AI collaboration?
Yeah, and definitely an important question. I think by building AI literacy within your teams and not just deploying tools. So people need to understand what AI can and cannot do, and how bias works, and how to challenge outputs constructively, and not being afraid to give constructive and open and trustworthy feedback. Without literacy, AI creates all these dependency rather than empowerment. So not being afraid as a leader to speak up if you see that a clear AI generated output and it's being presented to you, then maybe try to question it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's where you are seeing these true just pure AI outputs with no thought put into it. That's a real problem, and it's being able to
time, Max, and in like posts when there are leaders posting on LinkedIn, and there are these very obvious ways that is only being shown by ChatGPT, for example, and then you can clearly see, oh my gosh, that's literally a copy and paste from ChatGPT, just because there are certain words or symbols that only ChatGPT uses. So actually making the effort to think about it, to rewrite it, to correct it, it's really dear to my heart, and I see it so often. And there are these great leaders, and you just think, oh, can you just tell them that that's the ChatGPT symbol? Yeah.
Well, if you were an MD in a business and you had a personal assistant, and you were saying, okay, could you, you remember the old scenes where there's the MD walking around the desk and there's the PA writing down everything they say. So they then go, well, make this memo for me and make sure this goes out to the whole business and write this down word for word and then post it out to everyone. You wouldn't say to that PA, just write whatever you want. Just here's some stuff that I need. Write whatever you want. I'm not even going to check it. Just put it out to the whole business. You wouldn't do that. So why would you do it with AI? I think it baffles me, and I think that's the concept that we're trying to get across there. That for me is one of the leadership opportunities in AI, of actually really training businesses to use this intelligently and enhance what you already have and develop it without it letting it overtake. And that concept of outsourcing your thinking to AI is really key here. Do you see any other leadership opportunities in AI, Charlotte?
Just to redefine intelligence as collective and human judgment augmented by machine capacity. Leaders who master this will unlock entire new levels of organizational performance at the end of the day.
So, okay, are we all going to get chips in our brain then?
Let's see what the future will behold.
I mean, on one hand, it's a scary thought. On the other hand, embracing the future, embracing these technology is the way things are going. And the more we do it, the more we embrace it and understand it and use it effectively without letting go of all the knowledge and experience that we have as human beings, that's the best use of this, I think. Again, a truly interesting and insightful episode. We're getting really deeper into the concepts now about ethical AI usage, how the best ways for leaders to use AI are, how we work with our teams to make sure they're using it in the correct way, how humans collaborate with AI in the best way. Have you got any other points for us before we finish, Charlotte?
With AI, just use it to think better and to ask the right questions.
Perfect.
So
thank you once again, Charlotte. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. See you soon.